Oh, hey everyone, welcome back for another episode of First Canada Live. It is the first episode of the Rapid React presented by the Boeing Company season. That's right, we have a new first robotics competition game to break down, and I am super jazzed. I'm your host, Karthik, and we are just pumped to have you here. It's going to be a good time. So if you're wondering what this show is about, First Canada Live, it's a show where we get together with teams, personalities from our community. We talk robot stories, community initiatives, and just have a good time celebrating all that's good in First. And it is going to be a great time tonight. But to begin, as Canadians, it is important to recognize the land of which we are a part. As we gather for this meeting, physically dispersed and virtually constructed, let us take a moment to reflect upon the meaning of land and place, and in doing so, recognize the various traditional lands on which we celebrate today. We acknowledge the elders and youth, past, present, and emerging of all land on which we work and live. We honor the ancestral spirits with gratitude and respect. We also acknowledge this land out of respect for the Indigenous nations who have cared for Turtle Island, also called North America. The Indigenous people have been gifted the role of caretakers of this land before the arrival of settler peoples until today. But most importantly, we remember the history of these lands and people that have been tainted by poor treatment and a lack of friendship with the First Nations who called Canada home before it was given this name. This history is something that everyone is affected by. We are all treaty people in Canada. We all have a shared history to reflect upon, and each of us is affected by this history in different ways. Our past defines our present, but if we move forward as friends and allies, it does not define our future. All right, folks, and now to welcome our co-host for today's show. He's a student on FTC Team 163097, Relatively Quantum, and FRC Team 3560, Ching Botics from Brampton, a member of the First Canada Youth Council and a First Tech Challenge Dean's List finalist. It is Armand. What up, buddy?
How much? How's it going? I'm super excited.
I am so pumped, Armand. I think it's just, Rapid React presented by the Boeing Company is just so much fun. But hey, we don't want to get there just yet because we got a lot to do before then. But, that's what we're talking about. So, for everyone, normally we would go through like a list of all the segments we're doing on tonight's show. Tonight's show is the game. That's what we're talking about. So if you have questions for us, for myself, for Armand, any of our expert mentors who are going to be on talking strategy, drop them into chat. We can be super interactive. If you are wondering, hey, does this make sense? You can ask that kind of question. If you are wondering like, hey, what do you think is going to be more important? The traverse rung or scoring X number of cycles in the high goal? You can ask that question. We'll try our best to answer it. It's going to be really, really good. But before we get started, I think it's really important to remember a couple of things. Number one, we're here to have some fun and celebrate excellence in our community. So let's just stay positive with our comments in chat, and like no trolling and none of that stuff. But number two, robot season is busy and there's a lot going on and there's a lot of stress. So it's really important to think about make sure we were thinking about ourselves and our wellness and our mental health through all of this. So Armand, you've come up with a couple ideas on what people can do as part of the Youth Council Wellness Moment.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a good saying applies to this moment. It's going to be the hardest fun we ever have. And so I would like to highlight that word hard. So if we're too stressed during the build season, we're not going to be able to have the experiences. We're not going to be able to enjoy ourselves because it's going to be too stressful. So people manage that stress and get the most out of our build season. There's many different techniques that you could use to kind of mitigate some of that stress. Something that works well for me is just really simply taking breaks. Like even if I'm really stressed about work or I have a short deadline, actually, especially if I have a short deadline, I like to take breaks, just short ones, 5 minutes, not more than that. And I know some of you might be saying, oh, I don't have time. I'm too busy. I can't take the time out to take that break. But honestly, I promise you, you're going to be more productive for doing it, right? Your final result is going to be better if you take that break. And they don't have to be long. Again, they can be 5 minutes of just doing something that's not intellectually stimulating. So just look away from the work, just take a walk around, look outside your window. That's what I like to do. I like to play some music and really get into the vibe of it. But just something that's not intellectually stimulating, something that's not your work. So your brain can kind of enter a diffused mode of thinking. And in that way, you're still able to make some really good connections. And in fact, some of the best ideas I've had personally are from those eureka moments that happen when I'm not specifically thinking about the work, but I'm in another frame of mind. So I think there's a lot of benefit to taking these breaks. It allows you to be more productive. It minimizes stress. And some of your best ideas can come during those diffused states of mind. Now, if you're asking when should you take those breaks, you want to take one around every hour for about 5 minutes, and then a longer break every 3 hours, which is around 15 to 30 minutes. Now, those numbers are going to be different for everyone. So if you're really in the flow of it, like you're designing that shooter and everything's lined up and you're about to get it done, finish it off. You don't have to take the break right there just because your phone went off. And similarly, if you're completely blank, you don't you want to take a break earlier so you can kind of reset your brain and get back into it. So definitely your mileage will vary. So know yourself, know your limits, and kind of how you work, and take your breaks based on that.
That's some great advice, Ramon. I think like the big piece you hit there, like it's, if you want to think about this like a robotics perspective and like a strategic design sort of thing, it's about efficiency. And if you were constantly working, you might think, oh, I put in more work, so I'm going to be better. But that's just like, having a robot where it's just like, well, it's about who takes the most shots and just firing shots as quickly as you can. But it's about your accuracy and so it's about you become more efficient by taking breaks. So you may be taking fewer shots, but your shooting percentage is going to go up, which is going to increase your points going on as much. So that's a good one to think about. So thanks so much, Armand. Now it's time to move into our news updates, and we got some things going on here. First Canada, number one, our show schedule has changed now because we are into First Robotics competition season, plus provincial championships coming up for both First Lego League Challenge and for First Tech Challenge. So we're going weekly now with shows. It was every 2 weeks in the fall, but we're going to be back every week. And next week we got a great show. We got folks from Team 118 who do the Everybot that are coming on. So it's going to be a good time. Important reminders, scholarships. It is scholarship season. Armand, have you been applying for some scholarships?
All the time. Literally, that's my life at this point. Yeah, scholarship.
It's totally, that's kind of what it is. And there's some big ones with deadlines coming up soon, offered by First Canada. So make sure you go to the link that we're dropping in chat, firstroboticscanada.org/scholarships2122. And take a look at the Don Bosey Leadership Scholarship, the Canadian Women in STEM Award, First Canada Indigenous Scholarship Awards. All of them are due on January 31st. That is like 20 days away. So time is going to fly. Make sure you get those applications done. Especially like if you were writing an application that requires like a mentor to write a recommendation letter for you, speaking for the mentors, go ask them early to get that started, because it's free. They want to do the best job they can for you, but it's hard if they get that asked like the day before the deadline. So keep that in mind, apply for scholarships. Armand, have you ever had a question about First Lego League Explorer, First Lego League Discover?
I personally have not been in the program, but...
So you would have questions there because you haven't been in the program. Yeah.
When I watch First Canada Live, I'm like, what's going on? And I have some questions like, why are they doing this for sure?
Right. So you could drop into our virtual open house on Thursday, January 13th, which is like this week, between 5:30 and 6:30 to learn all about it. We know that finances, volunteer coach recruitment, and organizational strategies can be overwhelming when starting a new first event or team. And so the First Lego League Challenge, First Lego League Discover and Explore committee are here to help. So you can chat with their expert coaches and volunteers about how to start and run First Lego League Explore and First Lego League Discover teams, starting and hosting festival events, scaling your participation effectively in your community, and the big one, team grants that are available. So if you're interested, we're going to be dropping a link in chat along with a passcode, so you can log in on Thursday, and it'll be a really good time. And there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do with the program. So jump on to it. And now I'd like to welcome our first guest of the day, very special guest. It is none other than the president of First Canada, Mr. Dave Ellis. Welcome, Dave. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Karthik. How are you doing?
I am doing great. Super pumped for everything that we have going on the show today. But so part of the reason we're here is because we just had kickoff, and you were on site at our partner Studica's warehouse, greeting teams, helping hand out kits, doing the drive-through kit pickup. What was that like?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, first of all, let me just start off by thanking all of the various host sites that we had. We had 6 of them, Karthik, across Ontario, which really I think is helpful to see teams be able to pick it up locally in their area. So we had one in Milton Halton at the Craig Kilberger Secondary School, and the lead there was Veronica Kleinsmith. Another shout out to the Waterloo Breslau kickoff. The leads there were Maurice Veldus and Kevin Reed. The Kingston kickoff led by our very own Christine Bibick. And if you're ever looking for a good story, a good kickoff story, you really got to talk to Christine about what she had to go through to get her kits this year for her kickoff. It was really exciting. The Windsor centerline kickoff, the leads there, Alex Boussier from centerline. We had the Mississauga Studico one, which was where I was. The leads there were Florence and Phil, again, our staff. And then the London Western University one that was led by Joanne Moniz. And so those 6 sites, really were the face of First Canada on Saturday, and really, I think, helped those teams get off to a good start. But my own personal experience at the kickoff was awesome. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. We were talking about the fact that the drive-through piece was actually really cool, because it was an opportunity for us all to get like one-on-one time with the teams, and to be able to just kind of go out and hang out and ask them, what's your motivation for jumping in this year when it's a really tough year to get involved. And so it was just really interesting to hear from a lot of them. A lot of people came from far away. I had Dan Monty from Sudbury, and it was just neat to chat with some of those people that traveled, quite a fair distance to pick up kits for themselves, and for others, obviously doing the gracious professional thing. But it was fun to hear people's excitement about the season and just kind of be part of that kickoff this year. So I was really glad I was able to be there.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool that we were able to do this kickoff. We were still able to hand out kits while taking COVID protections. Everyone being masked up, social distancing, doing things outdoors and whatever. And just it's almost like a sneak preview of what our events would be like this year, with every precaution taken to keep people safe. That brings us to the topic, Dave. Obviously, there's a lot going on with the pandemic right now. We're in the middle of a wave from the Omicron variant. Schools are currently closed, but rumored to be reopening on Monday, which is very exciting. And we're in a semi-lockdown until January 26th. So how does this affect the status of the season in Ontario? There's been a lot of questions from our teams. They are really concerned about what the season might look like. We're all excited about this game, but is this going to happen?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. None of us do. It's hard to, extrapolate what things are going to be like down the road. But from our perspective, we're definitely planning for events. We're going to do everything within our power to provide a season for 4 teams. Of course, only if we're, allowed to do so, and if it's safe to do so, of course. But that started, I think, with asking HQ this a couple of weeks ago to can you push this? As soon as the announcement came out that schools were going to be closed until the 17th, it was like, oh no, how do our teams make that decision in such short amount of time, especially when they're coming back after the holidays, and they have to make that decision within a couple of days. So asking HQ to push the deadline to the 18th, which I was not hoping I was hoping for the best, but assuming the worst in that ask, and they actually graciously agreed to it. So that was a nice surprise. We just hope that in and of itself is a small gesture, but hopefully it gives the teams the chance to have a breather over this past little while as school gets started back up and virtually, and then hopefully, as you said, we're back in person after the 17th, and either way, the teams hopefully will have a decision with more information. They'll be able to make that a more informed decision about what they're going to do based on where things are. At that time, it was such a tight turnaround for teams, and we were really feeling for them. So hopefully, that extended deadline gives them a little bit of a breather, and people can make a decision that they feel a little bit more comfortable with. Either way, whichever the decision goes.
Makes a lot of sense. And like Armand, your team took advantage of the extended deadline, right?
Yeah, we did. I mean, it was really it was hard for us to choose, so that was really helpful for us.
Yeah, I think that's super important. And in terms of events, Dave, there's still a plan to have these events, but obviously only if it's safe to do so.
Yeah, like I said, we're full steam ahead from our perspective in terms of planning. We've been meeting with the venues. We've been recruiting volunteers, in the hopes that we can do it. As we outlined earlier in the year, they're going to be 18 team events. They're going to be, very limited capacity, obviously masks and all the protocols that we've been working on for the last couple of months. Karthik knows all too intimately. It's going to be about the safest place you can be if you're going to be anywhere and out with other people. So that I feel good about. But again, we're going full steam ahead as long as it's safe to do so, and as long as the province is going to allow us to hold these types of events. So fingers crossed on that one.
Yeah, and like, for the folks out there, like if you haven't taken a look, we have all our protocols listed on our website right now, firstresponscanada.org/COVID-19. But like it's strict. Like, you watch the news and you see like anchors, they're not wearing masks, whatever, but like all our MCs and game announcers will be masked for the entire event. It's sure we always like to look good on camera, but there's way more important things than that. And so that's what where our focus is going to be on safety and all that. So that's, really good to hear. Dave, before you go, is there anything else you'd like to say to our teams right now?
Yeah, I mean, I would hope people know this, but we understand the situation is challenging that you're all facing. I know, Armand, you guys have had some difficult decisions to make and still to make. As I look at our staff, I'm appreciative of the fact that we have, we have mentors of teams, we have former teachers, we have alumni now on staff, which is really cool. And so as a result, I think we have a pretty good cross section of the temperature out there and the pulse of what's going on. And we understand, we recognize this is a really challenging experience for everybody right now. Making the decision to be in or out is really tough. And I know that people are still grappling with that. These are hard times. And so we hear you on that. We appreciate everything that everybody's doing to support the kids. That was one of the really cool things at the kickoff, is just hearing people's motivation for sticking through it and pushing ahead. And not everybody's able to do that, and that's okay too. But really appreciate the passion that people have for this program and for the kids. And I see First Canada, I think we all do as one big family, and family pulls together when it gets tough, and we're going to do that in one way or another, and we'll pull through it. And as always, if there's any issue or question or you need support, don't hesitate, just reach out, and we're here to help for sure.
Thanks, Dave. That's really great to hear. And I think the teams appreciate this. Like, we're all in this together. This has been challenging, and there may be teams who are just like, well, we can't do it this year. And that's okay too. It's not like, obviously we want as many teams to be a part of this as possible, but the number one priority is that people are being able to be safe, being able to work within the guidance of public health and their school boards, and that everyone's doing the right thing. And so, we're going to talk a lot about building your robot and working within your resources and working within your limits. But that applies for choosing to be a part of the season as well. So teams, let's apply those strategic processes, and there's no shame in staying out. But for those who are going to be in, we're going to do our best to have like a wicked awesome season. And speaking of wicked awesome, Dave, what do you think of the Rapid React game?
Oh, I think it's an awesome game. I love it. I always like shooting games. Those are so entertaining, right, for everybody. It's good for the audience. I like the central action in the middle of the field. I think that'll be really good too, especially for we're gonna have more people at home, obviously, for these events than we normally would be. Having them all in the stands, and so I think having that wide-angle camera view of the field and being able to just kind of focus in on that center goal for the shooting, I think would be really cool. The climb at the end, I think, is going to be fantastic. I think it's going to be really interesting to see. What I know you're going to get into strategy in a few minutes, but what our team's going to end up doing in that end game. Are they going to kind of commit to a full climb, and get as many points that way, or are they going to spend as much time as they can, cycling shots and getting points that way, or maybe a combination of both? Shoot as long as you can and then just ram onto that low bar and see what happens. I watched I don't know if I assume you've watched lots of stuff, but I watched the Robot in 3 Day video on Saturday, and I really liked their wedge hanger. I thought that was really cool. Really simple, right? Something that a rookie team can do, and I like the idea that there's something in there for everybody. So I'm super excited. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see it happen.
Yeah, it's going to be a great season. We're going to dive into all the various strategies, and for the folks who are looking for something for a rookie team to do, or a young team, or even a veteran team this year, because you have less resources. We'll talk about this later on. Everybot folks, First Canada is going to be hosting a virtual Everybot build session, and we're going to be having the Everybot creators from NASA on the show next week. And actually, no one even knows this yet. We might even have a surprise with them next week. So that's really exciting. So good stuff with the Everybot, good stuff happening. Dave, thank you so much for everything that you've been doing with First Canada and making this season a reality for our team. So I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, Karthik. See you, Armand.
No problem. And we will be back for our deep dive into Rapid React presented by the Boeing Company after this video from one of our sponsors, Magna. I love that video. That Magna video is so cool with Crush celebrating when they won champs in 2017. That is pretty awesome. All right, Armand, you ready to do this?
100%.
All right, let's welcome our guests as we do our deep dive into Rapid React presented by the Boeing Company. First up, we got a First Canada alum of Team 188, the Blizzard, former mentor of Team 1241, Theory 6, current mentor and drive coach for Team 610, Crescent Robotics, First Canada game announcer, and the 2015 Volunteer of the Year award winner, Mr. Parth Patel. What up, boy?
Hey, how's it going, Karthik? Hey, Armand.
It is going great, buddy. Glad you can be here in the dark, but that's okay. That's okay. Where are your green lights, man?
Oh, sorry. Let me switch it right now as we continue the show.
As we bring it on. And as we're going to do that, I'm going to bring out our next guest, mentor for Team 1114 Symbotics and First Canada First Technical Advisor, April Riddett. Hello, April.
Hello, friends. How's it going?
It is so good. I'm so excited. So
We
we're
get
just
to talk about a new game.
I know.
I'm so thrilled.
You know, like Rihanna is cool with Pond to Replay, and we replayed the game, but like that, we're going new. This is where it's at right now. Rapid React. Woo, see, because that's Rapid React. You know, that's the symbol. That's the symbol. Our next guest, we have First Canada alum of Team 771 SWAT and mentor for Team 4476, the Waffles, Taegan Poles. Hello, Taegan.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
Good. Okay, Taegan, before we get started with any of this, I want to ask you, because like you're the expert, what did you think of the final F1 race of the season?
So much drama. Too much, arguably a little too much drama, but definitely worth the watch. I can't wait to see how Netflix spins it.
I think there was more drama in that race than there is in the question box during a finals match.
Oh, it literally felt like a bunch of teams like trying to rush the head referee in the question box. No one knew what was going on. It was such a mess. It was so funny.
Mercedes was in the question box. They're just
Toto, I sent you an email. Why aren't you checking your email?
Started.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm already in that question box. Let's go.
All right. See, yeah, we can do F1 talk here on the side too. You know, but also our final guest, First Canada alum of Team 4252, Cardinal Robotics, former mentor of Team 3683, Dave, and like 7 other teams, current mentor and drive coach of Team 1310, Runnymede Robotics, and the newly engaged Rishi Jotsinghani. What up, buddy?
Hello, everyone.
How are you? Oh, that voice. That is like a sexy announcer voice right there. Do you want to be a game announcer this year?
All the
spots are kind of full, but like maybe we can just like use you for a voice intro. Like,
that's true. We could do like if you're trying to get Lisa as a MC, we could do like a quick duo thing too.
Did you just volunteer her as an MC? Did you just do that?
I mean,
I didn't. I'm just saying that. At least that's all him. That's all him.
I've heard it been thrown around every so often. That's all.
Yeah. I think it'd be a cute pair to do it.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, Rishi. Congratulations. And also, you know, like Rishi, is it wild to you that like you coached in the last Einstein match, but that was like almost 3 years ago?
Yeah, it's crazy to think. I still like feel glad to hold that till last Einstein game played, but yeah, I'm hoping to lose that this year, if anything.
Can we hold up for a second? There is a viewer in chat named Samosa_mom. Rishi, is that Auntie?
Yes, that.
Oh, hi, Auntie. I'm so glad you're here watching. She said yes. She said yes, engaged, heart, and then heart of happy face emoji. So
yeah, she got to be there. So
that is. Oh, she was there?
She was there. Yes.
That's so nice. Yeah. That's so good. Okay, sorry. We're done with F1 talk. We might be done talking about Rishi's wedding, but we'll probably make some plans and whatever. We can just plan the wedding like right now, can't we? No one else needs to be here to plan it, right?
Yeah, I think having whatever the audience is in on it too might as well, right?
Exactly. All right.
Can we do like a Stronghold themed wedding where like your audience gets to vote on what happens in what order?
Oh, I like that.
I'll say
because
that
audience voting went so well in that game.
Horticulus.
Lisa loves castles, so if anything, like it'll fit the theme perfectly.
This is fabulous. I'm already in. Okay, so the game Rapid React presented by the Boeing Company. Before we get started with your first impressions, let's take a look how Rapid React is played.
Welcome to the 2022 First Robotics Competition. And this year's game, Rapid React, presented by the Boeing Company. 2 alliances of 3 teams each compete to score their cargo balls into the lower hub. and the upper hub. They earn additional points if the robots traverse the rungs of their hangar. Robots start each match on one of their tarmacs and may be preloaded with one cargo each. During the first 15 seconds, robots are autonomous. Without guidance from drivers, they leave their tarmac, score preloaded cargo, and collect and score additional cargo. During the remaining 2 minutes and 15 seconds, drivers control their robots. They continue to gather up 2 cargo at a time and score cargo in the lower and upper hubs. Cargo scored into either hub count towards the cargo bonus. Launch pads protect robots from contact by opponent robots. Robots may use either terminal, where their human players assist the robots with acquiring cargo. As time runs out, robots race to their hangar and traverse as many rungs as possible. The higher a robot gets, the more points it earns. An alliance that reaches a hangar point threshold is rewarded with a ranking point. The alliance that earns the most points wins the match.
There's the game there. Hey, Parth, I turned your camera off, so you want to turn it back on?
Yep.
Okay, so there's a lot to talk about this game. We have a slide here that's just like an overhead view of the game. For any of our guests, if you ever want to refer to things, just call for the slide and we can bring it up, but we can take a look at that right now so everyone can just kind of get used to what the field looks like. So there we are. There's the overhead of the field. You can see that it is symmetrical, but the way the field is cut this year isn't straight down, which I think is a neat thing to help access and where the balls are going to flow to. But it is like a really cool looking field. So I want to hear first impressions, and we can take that slide right now. And who would love to go first? I'm going to say Taegan.
Oh, okay. So first impressions. I mean, the main thing is there is a lot going on the field, especially like there's a very clear end game zone, and I kind of like that it's off to the side. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a fair number of people just avoiding it, and I love the central goal. I think having all 6 teams fire into one goal is super exciting. You've got the upper and the lower, which means a lot of different viable options, and I think, you know what? It's nice to have like that different split than we normally do, the 66-degree angle. Like, why not? Let's shake it up a bit. But the main thing that I really like about this field is the central goal.
Yeah, having the action central is so important. Like, I think, we've had some great games the last couple of years, but as a spectator, it's hard. Like when the 2020 game, balls being shot by both alliances, but you're looking to the left, to the right, you don't really know what to watch. And this is like the action is in the center of the field, and that's super cool. Parth, what about your first impressions?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what Taegan said. I love open fields without bumps and all kinds of obstacles to have to drive through. Like no Cheval de Frise for me, thank you very much.
Or a moat.
Or a moat.
Oh.
Yeah, definitely no moats. Because you can get stuck in moats.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah,
it does.
It does.
Yeah, bad times to get stuck in moats. But no, I agree with Taegan. I like the end game zone being sort of like it's not central to the field. It's like off to the side and kind of tucked away in a corner, so you can almost forget about it for the duration of a teleop until you get to the final 30 seconds or however much time you need. For me, what was interesting when I looked at the image first was like I hadn't read the manual all the way until I got to the number of balls section, and I was blown away by the like sheer lack of game pieces, especially considering some of the recent games that we've played where we've had a fair number of game pieces to play with. So that was a big like, oh wow, okay, we're playing with very few game pieces this year.
On that topic, Parth, of playing with few game pieces, it's not just that they're restricted, but there's no way to control the flow of them. In past games, it's very much been like some games it's been you score and your opponent gets game pieces. Some games it's you score and like they get spun out on your side field.
Back to you.
Now it's like it's a chase. And when we talk about cargo, we'll talk about the importance of that. But what about you, April? First impressions. And I'd love to hear maybe even first impressions as like a mentor, but also like from the FTA perspective, first technical advisor.
So man, what a cool game. I think this has so many awesome elements in it. I love that central goal. It's going to be so fun. It reminds me of the scale in 2018 and Power Up, when you had all those robots trying to interact with the same field element. I think it makes for such a fun match to watch as a spectator. I think it's going to be absolutely terrifying being in that third driver station, watching those robots climb up at you in the end game, because that is right in front of that piece of plexiglass, and you're going to be up close and personal whether you want to be or not. And I think it's just going to be so fun. Yeah, exactly, the one you've highlighted. I think that's going to be cool. Game pieces are going to be such an interesting part of this game because there aren't many and they're hard to handle. I think that's going to be a real challenge for teams this year that they might not realize yet. So as a mentor, that's what I'm thinking about. As an FTA, that 66-degree angle is going to be so hard to get in the right spot. It's so tricky when things are arbitrarily placed in the middle of the field. I'm having flashbacks to the steamships from Steamworks, but there's only one of them. So I think we'll be able to do it. I'm really excited to see this field put together. I see that the truss has come back for the end game climbing, but luckily it's smaller this time. So hopefully it'll be a little less obnoxious to put together. Overall, I'm really stoked to see how this game plays out.
April, I'm looking forward to one of Parth's students showing up in the question box and being like, that tape line is like 67.5 degrees. Can we get that adjusted?
Parth, you joke. I've seen teams out on fields with protractors, with like the little laser measurers. Teams are serious, and we want to get it right for them. So we'll do our best. There are, oh my goodness, what's the word? Tolerances listed in the game manual for all the measurements. So make sure you take those into consideration before you go tell your FTA your field is built wrong.
I'll say this, back when I was a drive coach, that was when you weren't allowed to bring measuring devices onto the field. It was like a rule. So I calibrated my Jordans such that there was, and then I could just be like, oh, like, well, I know the Jordan's calibrated or whatever. They're like, you can't have a measuring device on the field. I'm like, what are you gonna do? Make me take my shoe off?
Yep.
So
no shoes for you, Karthik.
No shoes for you. Awesome.
My kids will most likely be coming to you, April, and asking you to reinflate or deflate the balls because they're not inflated the exact right amount to spec,
Tricky. Wait till you get it on an ice rink. We had such issues with that in 2019. You put the cargo on the floor, and the floor is colder than like 3 feet above the floor, and they would just go whoom. It was hysterical.
Armand, what are you thinking for first impression? You're like the student representative here, being the voice council, the voice of the youth. Like, what's the feeling here amongst you and your friends?
When I first saw it, a lot of us thought that the shooting has been done before, but that climbing, we were like, whoa, that traversing was like, how are we going to do that? So the first thing we kind of thought is like, that's going to be tricky.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that in detail, but this is a tough challenge. We got a question earlier from Cheap Delphi is like, how difficult is this? And that's going to be one we're going to look at. Rishi, finally, first impressions.
Yeah, kind of the first thing I thought was that this is kind of like a drive coach dream type thing, because I think every game, or at least the last handful of them, it's been very like systematic the way you do cycles. You like go to the station, you pick up something and you go back, or you go to like this part of the field. But with balls getting spread around everywhere across the field, you're going to have like drivers are going to win matches just on their own. And I think it's going to be really fun to watch. But yeah, with a lot of our students being new, and especially a lot of these drivers, the ones that are trained the most are definitely going to stick out.
Yeah, and there will be a lot of teams who have less access to practice time this year as well. So that's something to think about, at least here in Ontario. Interesting that you brought that up, because I have a longer rant about this, and maybe I do a separate show, or maybe I do a paper on this. But a lot of teams is when they practice, they don't necessarily do drills, but they do just like repeated cycles over and over again. And so you see teams being really efficient when there's no defense. But then as soon as something throws them off, they're like very, very off with that style of practice. This year's game, you're constantly being thrown off because you don't know where you're going for your next ball. And I think how teams practice this year is going to be really, really important, because let's be real, most teams are not going to be able to build a structure like this and have the balls rolling or whatever. And a lot of times it'll just be like, okay, I'm just going to put a ball down, pick it up, score, and then go to the next ball, go to the next ball. And that's a risky way to practice. Just in general, you want to be prepared to adapt and as such. So I think overall, like, I just want to see if, like, from a reaction of thumbs here, overall reaction to the game. Do you love this game? And like, it's okay to not like, and like for all of us who've been around, when was the last time that there has been such a unanimous, like, wow, this game is good reaction? I
want to
want
see maybe
13?
13 is what I'm thinking.
14. 14 maybe.
I'm thinking 2014.
Yeah,
I
maybe
know
14.
16 had a lot of like to it, but I wasn't. But I don't think it's the same kind of level. Like
I
No.
think 14, it was like, it's almost like a sine curve where, like, at first people were like, oh, there's so few game objects, but then like this game started being played and went up, and then all the penalties, and then it started going down. But then after, when we got to Einstein, when they didn't really call anything, I'm just saying, right?
That's
there.
a different show.
I just
there we go.
you know, you block a shot and then whatever. Okay, hey, but you know, it's going up again, and then like 14. But like this one, it's like, and let's be real, folks. Impressions of the game change throughout the season, and there might be someone who finds a way, a strategy that makes the game less fun, you know, but is really effective. So we'll see where we get with that. And maybe we'll talk about some of that stuff right now. So our, next thing I want to talk about, let's talk about cargo. Let's talk about the hub. But to do that, let's take a look at these. First of all, HQ started making these field tour videos a few years ago, as April's got an interesting chin rest right there. So let's take a look at what our friends from First Engineering. Taegan's got one too. Nicely done.
Mine arrived today. Thank you, Studica.
Yeah, Studica's been on
Right.
fire with that. You can buy them there for $15 a piece. I highly recommend it. But let's take a look at the field tour video of the hub so we can see the balls reacting and all the good stuff. So let's take a look at what our friends from First Engineering have to say.
Hi, I'm Kelly.
And I'm Amanda. We're here to talk to you about the hub. It's the scoring structure in the center of the field and is shared between alliances.
The hub consists of an upper hub and a lower hub. Cargo scored in the upper hub is worth more than cargo scored in the lower hub. Each cargo is a 9.5-inch diameter oversized tennis ball, which is either red
Or blue.
They will get fuzzy with use, so make sure you anticipate the change and test accordingly. Fuzzy cargo will be used in official gameplay.
Cargo with large gouges in the fabric will be retired.
Both the upper and lower hub are designed to have cargo exit randomly. Counting cargo is handled by a combination of infrared and color detection sensors from Rockwell Automation.
If a team scores 20 or more cargo into the hub, they'll get the cargo bonus. And if 4 cargo are scored during auto, the threshold drops to 18.
Cargo exiting the upper hub is likely to bounce or roll away from the structure. The spread is wide and will vary. Be careful not to catch cargo exiting the upper hub. Doing so could incur a penalty.
Generally, the upper hub processes cargo in about 4 to 7 seconds, and the lower hub in about 3 to 7 seconds. If there is only one cargo in there though, it may take longer.
A web of chain is suspended inside the lower hub and is used to retain cargo, but cargo entered forcefully may still bounce out. If your robot extends into the lower hub, it may get caught, so be careful of the chain.
Adjacent to the hub are the tarmacs, where robots start the match. Tarmacs are a little cozy. Alliances may have to shift their robot starting locations depending on the size of their partners.
A series of cable protectors run from the scoring table side of the field to the nearest lower exit of the hub. These cable protectors are different from previous years. They're less than an inch tall and aren't perpendicular to the field border. See the manual for a diagram of the field layout. Have fun!
Good luck, teams!
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly and Amanda. I love those videos because, like, it's so much more useful than the animation, just seeing actually how things react. So cargo, the hub, question for any of you. And I think especially for April and Taegan, because you've got cargo in your hands right there, but what should people be aware of with the cargo this year?
They do
These
not compress.
Bouncy.
Okay,
Yeah,
take it first.
Those are the top 2 things.
Yeah,
Go for
so
it.
the one big thing, in size, it's kind of similar to 2016. It's about an inch smaller in diameter. It's a blow-up ball like 2019, but it does not squish nearly as much as some of those past balls. You inflate them to 3.5 psi, so not a ton of pressure for teams who have worked with inflatable balls in the past. But there isn't a ton of squish. In 2019, they were rubber. You could kind of squish them almost as much as you wanted. Here, I'd say maybe an inch when you get it at the right pressure. So that's something that teams are going to want to keep an eye out for and keep in mind as they design their robots.
So I'll say this, not game specific, but just like in any game, when you're picking up an round object using rollers, you want to have some degree of compression, and the compression is either going to come from your object or from your roller. And what Taegan says to me might imply that if you might want to have a little bit more squish in your rollers, and that's going to help you choose the durometer of wheels that you're going to buy from Andy Mark or Rev or West Coast Products or whoever. April, bounce. Just bounce with me, baby. Just bounce with me. Sorry.
Like, I wish I had a hard surface here or a camera that I could show you, but these are so bouncy.
Just bounce it off your degree. You got like 4 of them.
I'm gonna not do that. I just hung those up, Karthik, please. I bounced this on my kitchen floor. I dropped it from as tall as I am, which is 5'6". It bounced 12 times and rolled almost 15 feet before coming to a stop. So these are gonna go everywhere on the field when you launch them. Pretty sure we're going to have a dedicated volunteer like running around the field, collecting them and putting them back in play.
Volunteer tribute.
All right, great. Karthik, you are signed up. See you at Waterloo.
You're going to get your cardio if you sign up for a whole competition doing that.
I'm old, so I'll just sign up for a bit and then like tap out, and like some 13-year-old's going to have to do it.
The one thing I would say to April's comment though is make sure you test it on carpet. Because kitchen floor will react differently. It'll dampen it differently than carpet. So if you can even get like a small square of field carpet, that'll give you a sense of how it'll be like in play.
Always test your intakes on carpet. Always test your intakes, your drivetrains, everything on carpet, because running on linoleum floor just
okay. 2009 called. They want their game back.
Fine, they can have it.
Yeah, they can keep that.
The other thing I'll say is these are fuzzy. This is a tennis ball. I haven't seen a game piece with this sort of texture on it. I think it'll be fascinating. Velcro sticks really well, but be careful about how sticky your Velcro is for damage to field elements. But I could pick this up with like a 3-inch strip of 1-inch Velcro. No problem. Wasn't going anywhere.
Interesting. And for the younger folks out there, there is like some Velcro that is specifically designed for tennis balls. There used to be like a game. Rishi, Parth, do any of you remember this as a kid? That
game with
it was like pink and green, I think.
Yeah. And so like that exists, and also like some tennis courts use it for ball storage. So it's an interesting thing out there. But as April said, always be wary of damaging balls. Consistency of these balls. In the game manual, it specifically says that the spec isn't super tight. So for Taegan and April, have you like blown up different balls and they ended up looking a little bit different, or?
I've got these two.
Oh, go ahead.
Go for it, Taegan.
Oh, I was just gonna say. Go for it, April, all you.
So I inflated these with a bike pump, which is maybe not the device I would recommend inflating them with, because I had about, plus or minus 5 PSI accuracy on my bike pump, and these are supposed to be inflated to 3.5 PSI. So no clue if they are the right inflation. I don't think it is going to change the size the way it did in 2019. If your cargo was overinflated or underinflated, it drastically changed the size of that. I do think it will change the compressibility.
Yeah, and going off what April said, mine is, we have a bike pump that we have one because I went out and bought one today, that had a scale on it specifically for like low tolerances, because we knew like if I went out and used one that I have for my like tires, it was gonna have too big of a leeway. So this is anywhere between 3 and 4, which is why like I saw a little bit less bounce than April did with mine. Like I dropped it from my height, which is 5 feet, and it went about like waist height on the bounce. So it depends what you're bouncing it off of. But at the same time, like, yeah, you won't see people saying, oh, it's too big or too small, but it would have an impact on like, especially the hub. If you throw it at the hub and you hit that, I think it's Lexan or some variety of plastic, like they would react differently. So try and get something that will tell you as long as it's around 3.5 PSI.
And a lesson from past games, and we don't want to go too far back into the past, but 2020, teams were like, oh, these balls, I can shoot perfectly when it's brand new, but as soon as there's a little bit of damage, it's very, very different. And I think teams should be aware of that. Keep that in the forefront of your mind right now, that you're not just designing to one condition of balls, because I bet that it seems like these balls get fuzzy pretty quickly. So teams who are working may consistently practice with fuzzy cargo. And then when they get to the events, they might have new ones, and like April, I guess it's going to change through the event, and some new events might have new cargo, but they might not, right?
Oh yeah, and you're going to end up with a mix on the field, because if one of these does get run over or destroyed for whatever reason, we're going to replace it with a new one. So you'll have a mix of cargo life cycles on the field at any point.
April, how big a gouge is big enough to replace the balls? They don't mention that in the field tour videos.
That's a great question. That is up to the discretion of your field supervisor and your FTA at the event.
You had to know that was going to be the answer. I don't know what you
Yeah,
expect.
It will be asked at every event as well. Like that, get used to it.
That's
Yeah,
a
we're
driver's
used to
meeting
drive coach
question to
mode.
everyone.
Yeah.
We do talk to HQ. They do give us guidelines on what's acceptable, what's not. We can always ask them for clarification if the FTA is needed at the event. If you have concerns, talk to your field staff, talk to your FTA, talk to your field supervisor. Always happy to answer those questions and make sure that you feel like you're getting a fair gameplay, because that's what we're there for.
Parth, I got a question for you. You've been around a lot of good robots over the years, and one of the big things for any sort of ball game is not just being able to pick up the balls, but not to get stuck on them. And people will laugh and be like, how do you get stuck on ball? But it's like actually a real concern. How big of a concern do you think it is with this specific ball, considering where the bumper heights are and the such?
Yeah, so one of my biggest concerns in terms of getting stuck on balls is if your intake is like you have a bumper cutout and you're doing like an inside the frame perimeter sort of intake, and there's a ball up against a wall, and you're trying to like ram into the wall to try and pick up this ball, that's an easy way to end up on top of a ball. And if you're building 4 foot tall and you end up on top of a ball, you might end up on your back. And I am pretty concerned about that. I'm also concerned about, balls are bouncing, and it's possible that when you're driving around, like you could end up pushing balls around and somebody else could jam a ball into you. If they're playing defense, there's a ball between you and that robot. That ball ends up under you or it ends up under them. There are all kinds of rules for robots, like robot to robot interaction, but there's no rule that prevents a ball from ending up under you. Like that's going to happen. There's no rules to protect you from that. I'm concerned, man. I'm concerned, but I'm glad I haven't been able to inflate my balls yet because I don't have a pump right now. But I would like to be able to do that and see, because if the compressibility is somewhat consistent, maybe you can work around it. But I know 2010 is a drastic example, but with the bumper zones where they were or weren't, you were easily getting on top of balls, and I don't think it's that bad, but I think it could be.
So we've been talking physical characteristics of the cargo and that sort of stuff, design stuff, but I want to talk a little bit of strategy right now, because one of the questions that teams, and we're not going in the normal order of a strategic design process in this discussion because it's just a discussion, but there would have been some more talk on teams. But one of the big questions is low hub versus high hub. So Rishi, your team got to Einstein in 2019 without scoring high on rockets. And so you understand the trade-offs that are involved here. What are you thinking about when it comes to low hub versus high hub? Not necessarily, just in general, broad. I don't want anyone to give away what their teams are building right now. That's totally, unless you want to, like open alliance, hashtag, whatever. But what are your initial thoughts?
So, I mean, the biggest thing I guess people are going to be talking about is that 1 point worth it? Is the high hub being 2 points versus the low hub being 1 point? Is that trade-off really worth it in a lot of cases? And I would say for a lot of teams, I think it is. We can talk about 2019 where they were equal in points, the rocket versus the cargo ship. And then we can talk about 2016 when it was 5 points versus 2 points. And there were some low successful robots at that time too, but
you were on one of those teams.
Yeah. But one of the things is we were probably like, there weren't probably as many as I would say in 2019. Like it wasn't definitely a common strategy, I would say, for a high scoring robot. But this year it feels like, first of all, comparing a year like 2016, the cycles seem that they could be a lot faster. There are less obstructions in the way, obviously. The field, they're not going across field. not for every cycle at least, potentially with the balls bouncing. But so I think it's potentially very viable. And you have to go back to the ranking point, right? If you can get that 5 balls in auto, that's a lot of value when it comes to that 18. You need 18 balls instead of 20 to get that ranking point. And I think if a lot of teams end up focusing on just like making a quick thing that picks up a ball and out takes it into the logo, we're gonna see very high ranking point scores at events. But yeah, like if I talk about 2016 is always the example I go to, because in week 1, 2, 3, like people were really bad at scoring high. And then after that, it became really common. But yeah, speed was always king at the end of the day. And I think it's still viable here.
Yeah, I think you've touched on something really important there. And Taegan, I'm wondering what your thoughts are on this about, because normally it's just like you kind of look at point to effort ratio, but now you've got to factor in the fact that in theory, some people are saying, like Rishi is saying, you might be easier to retrieve balls that are coming out of the low return than the high return. So when you're going through like a design process at a rubric on this sort of stuff, Taegan, is that something that you would find a way to factor in?
Yeah, so the one thing that I think is most important when teams are looking at, is high goal or low goal right for them is accuracy. I think a shooter or a low goal scorer needs to be 90% accurate to be viable. And so I think in a lot of cases, we're going to see teams go for the low because they feel like they can do it more consistently. And in this game, especially compared to others, I feel like that's a viable strategy that can get you very far. I think we'll see like simple robots that are able to score really high because they can do those quick low cycles. It may be spilling all out over the field, but you don't have to wait for the ball to bounce and dampen. You don't have to wait for necessarily the way I'm trying to say it is, if you're shooting high, the balls could bounce off each other when you're shooting high. Less likely to happen because the low goal, you can actually place it, or you can shoot it and it'll be a bit lower because you don't have to get as high and as fast. So I don't know. I think it's super viable to be a competitive robot that is low scoring. You'll definitely get picked at least until district champs, if not at world championships, if you're a consistent low goal scorer. Obviously high goal, always nice to be able to get more points, but when the ranking point doesn't care if your balls go in low or high, sometimes you'll see teams with a high scorer going for the low score anyways, just because of consistency. Consistency is king for me in this game.
Yeah.
And there's one thing.
April and Rishi.
One thing I wanted to touch on with what Taegan was saying is that with the way the way cargo is going to be exiting the hub this year, I think maneuverability is going to be so important on this field. In that if you're trying to navigate to get your intake to one of these cargo while it's rolling away from you, while another team is trying to get it, while other robots are driving through it, being able to get exactly where you're trying to go with a drivetrain like can't believe I'm saying this, like a swerve drivetrain or something with mechanism wheels or some combination thereof, I think is going to be very critical this year as compared to previous years. Much like Power Up 2018, being able to get exactly to which side of that box you needed to get to, which side of the power cube to pick it up. I think it's going to be really similar.
I want a quick poll of the group here. Who thinks that, and Taegan's already said she thinks it is, who thinks that low hub scoring robot can be viable at a competitive level throughout the season? I'm not voting. Okay, everyone. That's kind of what I expected with this group of strategists. That is good for teams to know. And like, hey, teams, there's no shame in going for the low goal. Rishi's Einstein low goal, division finalist low goal. It can definitely be done.
I kind of want to give one quick point. Sorry, that I actually think, because I think low goal is kind of, and even in our conversation, it's like, guys, it's viable. I want to say that if you spend your resources properly and you focus on your drivetrain, you focus on your training, I think you can win events with low goal. I think it is very possible, and I'm not talking like events that are mediocre. I mean, you can be one of the best robots in the world. I think it's literally that possible to be that. And then we've seen it with Jack in the Box in 2019, which is one of the best robots in the world, and they didn't touch the tower at all, or the rocket. So I'm probably the most biased person, I would say, in this category in all of FRC. But yeah, it's just my thoughts.
Before we jump, because we got a lot of more stuff to cover, and we just spent like half the show on this, which is great. This is cool. April, you brought up a really interesting point because you said I might be going for a piece of cargo and another team might be going for it, because this year you can handle your opponent's cargo. So I don't want to dwell on this for too long. Anyone have thoughts on these types of strategy? Armand, you haven't been in, so we'll come to you right after Taegan.
I think
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, Armand, please.
Okay. What I was thinking is that because there's such less cargo on the field, like we kind of mentioned that, I think starving your opponent's cargo is a viable strategy this year, just because there isn't that much to go around. So, if let's say in the worst case scenario, everyone in the alliance has your opponent's cargo, it's already half the cargo for the other alliance is gone. And a lot of it is going to be either in that tower. So I think really storing that could be pretty useful in trying to starve out the opponent.
Taegan, sorry.
Yeah, no, totally fine. And Armand makes a great point. Starving, if your alliance, starving the other alliance, is one of the most important things you can do. If you are a defense robot, please, please, please have 2 of the opposite alliance's cargo in your robot. Make sure you check G404. That's the hoarding rule. You can't have more than 3 cargo in your possession of the opposite color. But if you are playing defense, I know if I was planning strategy for the match, I would arguably expect our defense robot to be holding opponent cargo, just to make it life a little bit harder for them.
Sorry, Parth, I'll let you go.
I was just going to say, I would take it one step further, and based on the wording of the rule right now, I would argue if you're climbing in the last 30 seconds and you're Blue Alliance, there better be 6 red balls in your robots when you're up out of the ground, because there's no reason why there should be any blue balls in your robot, any blue cargo in your robot for when you're gonna, unless you're gonna do the hang shot.
Oh, stop, man.
But
hey,
otherwise,
it's on our priority list. It's on there.
Mine
it's
too.
not high,
Mine
but it's
too.
on there.
Of course it's on yours. You did it in a year you weren't even allowed to do it.
Okay, but I also I have no defense.
That's the other thing is you can, in the last 30 seconds, the rule that says you can't hoard does not apply. So at the end, like, you can have 2 in your robot and the rest of them can be underneath your robots that are going for the climb. And that will make life really hard for the opposite alliance. Things like that. So that's why you want to read the rules and you want to read them thoroughly.
One thing on hoarding that I think everyone should really read the rule for is because first is defined momentary this year.
Finally,
and they've given it a specific definition, and it is not what most people would think. So because it's 3 seconds. So there's a lot that can be done in all of that. So I think it's important to pay attention to. Hey, we could talk this portion of the game for a lot longer, and we'll come back to some of it because this is really cool, like just how much stuff's going on here. But I think it's time to talk a little bit about hanging and the hangar. So let's take a look at the field tour video on the hangar.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
And I'm Danny. We're excited to share some information with you about the hangar.
The hangars are Alliance specific and have 4 different levels: the low rung, the mid rung, high rung, and the traversal rung.
In order to get the hangar bonus, teams must earn at least 16 hangar points.
The low rung can rotate, the other 3 rungs are fixed.
A shadow line is directly under the mid rung and can be used to position the robot when starting to engage with the rungs.
A rung is only the bar between the truss. Any parts that overlap the truss are not a rung.
So, rung. Get it? Rung?
Got it. The detail about what is rung, combined with the limited space up there, means it will be cozy for an alliance aiming for 3 robots on a certain rung.
This means that a fully populated rung can be tricky to achieve, and it also means that special care must be used when retrieving robots in close quarters.
That's a great reminder, Danny.
It's also important to think about the potential for a robot to swing when moving from rung to rung. The wall is only 3 feet 3 inches, about 99 centimeters, from the traversal rung.
It is possible for a robot to swing and hit the hangar wall, so teams should be aware that a free-swinging robot may encounter some hard impacts. Have fun!
And good luck, teams!
So This is really cool. Hey, Parth, turn your camera back on. There's a lot of awesomeness in there. And I mean, when you think of past challenges that this is like, the first thing that everyone comes to mind is the 2013 hang, which I can talk about in detail in a bit. But I guess the question I want to ask is, I'm just going to go like, let's just do the thumb, like, how hard is each rung? So the low rung, what are we seeing that challenge being like? Is this super hard? Is it easy? Is it someone throw something at me?
I would argue the low rung is nearly a given. It's not far away from the maximum dimensions of the robot. It's well within kind of that wedge type hanger we were talking about earlier. I know a lot of robots in 2013 had something where they just put their little arms up and drive on and pull up 2 inches and you're hanging. And so I would argue that if you don't have like insane high goal shooting abilities, I would aim for being able to at least attempt the lowest rung.
So I want to bring up 2013 year because in advance, I checked up some stats on that season. And it is because it seemed like you have to have those 10 points and it's super, super important. But you know what was really interesting to me? At an early season regional, GTR East that year, does anyone want to guess what the rate of at least a 10-point hang, which was the low hang that year was? At least. So teams who went higher got more.
About a third.
20%.
Yeah, Taegan's on it. It was 30%. But at the last regional of the year in Ontario, GTR West, what do you think the number was?
85.
80.
80. You're all so good. This is why we bring you on the show. It was 80%. It's skyrocketed. Now, what do you think it was at a champs division that year?
100%.
It was probably 85. I know
60. It was 60. Because,
Ontario's just too good.
Welcome
Ontario's
to
just too
Ontario.
good.
and the rest of the world, only Michigan was in districts basically at that point, and
Right.
champs qualification, there was like waitlist qualification back then, and the champs was just like a different place. It was
lot
it's a
more
very
teams.
different one. But
For division, yeah.
to see how things evolve over the season. Now, part of that is that the clip-on hanger, as I'm calling it, really didn't become, people saw it early and they're like, oh, we could slap that on. But now with robot in 3 days and all these resources we're going to talk about later, there's things there. But I think that's a good point. So medium, what's the difference between medium and low? And I know it's X number of inches, but like in terms of design thought,
You
Armand?
need a mechanism
Oh, sorry.
for
I
it,
think-
basically. You need a mechanism
Yeah.
that can climb. I mean, April said, low, you're very close. It's like, okay, it's a 1/4 inch below the max height, so you'll still need like a little bit of motion on your robot to get a low climb. But medium, you need to put something on your robot for it. That's the main difference to me.
And
But
it's
it's
like what I think Dave mentioned in one of his RI3D videos, you saw a wedge, right? So that's a completely passive mechanism where you just drive into it and you can get wedged onto it. But when you go for the mid rung, you will need some kind of active lift up mechanism.
Which teams are familiar with because we've had hanging in a few games, so it's right there. Now let's go to high, and this is where things change a little bit. So Parth, why is high? Well, what's the difference between high? I don't want to lead you.
I'm just going to go back one point. The difference also, I think, please don't underestimate the difference in driving to the 4-point rung and wedging yourself on versus driving to the 6-point rung and lining yourself up. The number of times teams just say, oh, I'll just build X kind of arm, go up, grab it and pull up. Yeah, you have to line that up though. That there's a time to that. So that there's a difference there, 4 to 6. 6 to 10, I mean, that difference is, X number of inches, 2 feet to be exact, but also difference in height as well. The difference is you're going to need to play with geometry. It's an optimization problem, right? How do you optimize the ability to lift your robot for 6 while also having the room on your robot to either reach out and grab the 10 or, I don't know, maybe monkey bar yourself across or yeet across the bars?
Or just to be clear for our audience, for some people who, because this is a new game for everyone. I know like this group, we've mastered it. You all have mastered it. But why can't they just do like a normal 2020 climber to reach the high?
Yeah, that's a good point. So the rules disallow you from reaching any higher than essentially the mid rung, or I think you have a little bit more past the mid rung, but you can't get all the way to the high rung or the traversal rung, obviously, because that's even higher. So there's going to be some sort of a consideration of how do you use the 6 to and leverage it to get to the 10, or maybe you utilize some of the other features. And one of the things that I think is unique about this year's climbing challenge to years past is there are surfaces and other things that your robot is allowed to lean on and support off of without negating a climb. And I think that a lot of teams are already looking at it, but I think that's an interesting, for example, if you know center of gravity is an issue and your robot is going to swing to the side, maybe climb closer to the side borders of the field and use the sidewall to help catch your robot so you're not going to fall off the rung.
So now, so there's low, medium, high, and there's traverse. And you've explained a little bit of the difference. What's the difference from getting from high to the traverse?
I mean,
A big mechanism.
So it's definitely going to be a lot more complicated than if you're just shooting for high versus shooting for traverse. And yeah, speed is obviously going to be a factor as well. And that climb that April's holding, I believe, you'll tell me, but it was like 10 to 12 seconds, something like that.
It was by the end, it was a little bit under 10 seconds. But let me just be clear here, because there's a lot of talk about how fast or whatever. I think teams do themselves a disservice when they focus on what the best team in the world did in a previous year, because it's not realistic. With 30-point climbs in 2013, which is the challenge that people are equating this to, whether it's harder or not, we can talk about that. At most regionals, there would be one team who could consistently do a 30-point climb.
If that.
Yeah, if that. Like there was plenty where it didn't even happen. And like people, everyone will post on Chief Delphi. It's like, oh, my team did a 30-point climb. And then I'll go look at their stats and be like, yeah, you did it twice in the entire season. That's not a 30-point climb in my mind. That's like, no, that's a bonus sort of thing. Like if you're going to do something, with your strategic design, you want to do it at a 10 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10. It has to be a mastery of it. So yeah, like in 2013, it was almost like a race between us and 254, which is like every year back in those days.
Oh no, how hard must it be to have to deal with 254 as your biggest competition?
Well,
I feel
and
so bad for you.
And to be clear, we were considerably faster than they were that year. They got faster than us, and then
it was,
Ben was just like, oh, okay, we're adding 2 more motors to this, and
but that was one of the best in the world at the same time. So like, yeah, that's what we're talking like. That's the level that we're kind of putting this climb at, I think, this year.
I would say 5, maybe. So I was talking about this. I'm thinking 3 to 5 teams in Ontario before district champs will have a working traversal climb.
So you all, like, I won't say all because individuals have opinions on this, thinking that the traversal climb is as hard as that 30-point climb in 2013, harder or less hard?
I mean, I wasn't around in 2013. I only started in first in 2015, even though I have mechanisms from a much older robot. I think it's going to be really, really challenging because it's not a way of climbing that first has seen in a long time. And like, even with this mechanism, this extended 30 inches outside the frame perimeter of that robot. You had so much space to play with, and you just don't have that this year. And so you're going to have to be really, really intentional about how you design your robot. And I don't know if, at least like in district play, and I would argue all the way up to district champs or your average regional, I don't know if there's enough payoff for the amount of time investment, energy investment, space and weight investment on your robot to make a transversal climb possible when a medium climb is pretty accessible to, I would say, a majority of teams, especially with some of the COTS off-the-shelf parts that teams have access to now. I would argue it's decently accessible. And I think we're going to see a lot more action on the mid-rung than will necessarily be strategically worth it to go for the transversal rung, at least in my opinion.
I'm going to pause the discussion on climbs right now because we do have to get to the sponsor video, but we're going to come back to this. Don't worry, everyone, just hold right there because we got a lot of good questions from chat that have to deal with climbs. So we'll be back in just 1 minute after a word from one of our sponsors, Hatch.
When I was applying for co-ops, I was really looking for a place that would allow me to have the greatest amount of experience. And since Hatch is such a big company, I knew that I would be able to get involved with all the different groups that the company offers.
What surprised me about working at Hatch was the amount of responsibility that you're given very quickly, like once you start.
There's so many opportunities to learn, not just from specialists in the field, but also from something like Lunch and Learns, or even Safety Shares. So it's not something technical that I'm learning, but something that might help me in my everyday life.
For me to be able to just walk into their office and ask them whatever I want, to schedule a meeting whenever I want, to be able to work directly with them on building things was an insanely good experience.
As a student, I am as much valued as the other employees that are here.
I enjoy working here because people are very friendly, and this environment that they created has been more than absolute perfect.
Hey, we're back. Rishi wraps up by 7, because that's what I do during breaks. So on the hangar, some questions. How fast do you expect climbs to be at week 6 level events in Ontario? Meaning this is specifically the traversal rung. And do you think we see sub 10-second 4th rung climbs be likely by week 6?
I think they'll be faster than 2013's climb. So yeah, I think it would be sub, but it's going to be like 1 or 2 teams, obviously, that are doing this. So yeah, I definitely agree. Because one thing to think about also is like we are, what is it, like 9 years from 2013. So the median robot in 2013 is completely different than the median robot today. And so it's like why I'm expecting to see a lot of innovation with it. So definitely sub 10.
One thing that's changed drastically since 2013 is that you can buy COTS hangars now, like really, really good ones. Like the West Coast products, it's just like, that is gorgeous.
That's why I would argue that, like, because we were talking about like what's harder, 2013 level 3 or traversal. If you put them side by side in the same year and look at the challenges, I think traverse is harder. But I think with the availability and accessibility of all the resources that we're going to talk about later, I know, but that I think makes it so that at the time getting level 3 I think was harder than teams being able to do traversal now.
Yeah, I think, and also like people, it's easy to look at the very few successes that happened in 2013 and just be like, oh, that's so cool and everything like that. I will tell you the 11-14 experience from 2013. I'll give you flat out and honest. We bagged a robot that year that couldn't drive and could not shoot Frisbees. We fixed it with a practice bot, and we were fine at our first event, but we didn't attend a single practice match until championship because practice day was just constantly working on that hangar. It was super, super hard. And for most other teams, there were other teams who tried 3rd level hangars and their seasons didn't go. Like the Thunder Chickens, 217, one of the best teams in the world. They had a 3rd level climb that just never actually worked during the season. So just beware when trying these hard challenges. But I'll say the flip side of it, because there's something to be said about building something really, really cool. And it's been 9 years since I've been involved in that robot. And that robot was not one of our most successful. It didn't go to Einstein. But this weekend, I was watching videos of it because people were asking me. And I was just like, we actually built that. And that is a cool feeling 9 years later. And I can show that video to my friends who have nothing to do with robots. And they're like, wait a second, are robots doing that? Like, that's just, how I was like, oh, just the driver presses one button. And they're like, what? And so there's something about doing something cool. Teams have to value where your values are and when you build your priority list and all that sort of stuff. Okay, I don't want to spend too much time on the traversal hang because I think we've said that it's going to be rare. But here's something that's going to be really, really important. How many robots can fit on a bar?
That depends how you design your robot, Karthik.
And do you think this should be a consideration, Taegan?
I absolutely do. So the one thing that 4476 does, which I think is a little unusual with our priority list, is we write down everything we think the robot can possibly do. So like this year we have 60 things on our priority list, and at the day 1, day 2, we're gonna do them all. Our robot's gonna have a traversal, it's gonna have like a 6-ball auto, it's gonna be able to fit on under a third of the bar, and then you start cutting. And you start cutting and you drastically start cutting. So you find the balance between overbuilding and underbuilding your robot. And so on there is being able to fit in about a quarter of the rung. Now, where that is, I'm not going to say because leaks, but especially when you're looking for combinations to make the ranking point possible. If you can fit all 3 robots on mid, why wouldn't you do that instead of 2 mid and 1 on the low? Like things like that is a really important thing to consider. And so I think if you can design your robot to take up less than a third of the space, that will be really valuable, especially if you have a mid-level climb. If you could do hang, you'll have more space because less people will be doing that. But mid-level especially,
So,
very important.
I feel like I'm here because I just like to talk about old games, even though we have this new awesome game. But I think you have to think about in 2018 the value of the skinny hang, where just to like you grab like a little corner or something, or 2016 the teams that did like the like gymnastics as opposed to the pull up, the gymnastics hang, so other robots could get up. And I think there's important considerations there. Now, all of y'all were just like, oh yeah, mid hang is like the way to go, and it makes sense. But can a mid hang automatically do a low hang?
Necessarily.
Not necessarily.
And so, like, if you have 3 robots in Alliance and they're all mid hangers, and none of them can low hang, that's probably a bad thing, right?
Yeah,
100%.
Just
especially if you want the ranking point.
6 times 2 is not 15.
I mean, well, you're
so
not
yeah,
getting it,
that's a bad thing.
So it's something that a lot of teams might need to think of, because there's always an assumption in games that it's like, oh, if we can do the harder task, we can do the easier one. And thinking 2016, teams were like, oh yeah, if we can score the high goal, we can do the low goal too. And it's like, oh, we don't actually have a way to score in the low goal. So
the other thing that scares the crap out of me, and I'm probably one of a singular drive coach who thinks this way. Like if there are 2 robots already climbing on the mid, I don't care how small I build my robot. If I know that I can score a ball and win with the 4, I'm not going for the 6. Like, I'm sorry, I don't trust myself, my drivers, or anybody else's drivers for that matter, to not knock me off that rung.
No, and that's totally fair, because why would you do something that has like an 80% chance of success when you've got an option that gets the goal that you want and is going to get you and is going to be safer, it's more likely to happen. Like, that's the biggest thing. Like, same with the low goal. It's that same conversation. Why would you do something risky if you've got something consistent in your back pocket?
Exactly.
Armand, what are your thoughts on hangers?
I know our team is planning to go for a mid hang, like many teams I assume would be going for, especially because, again, the availability of the climber in a box from Andy Mark and all the other lift systems. But I definitely see the potential for, low hang as well, and making sure that if you're designing something for mid hang, you're also able to get it to go down to the right level and work with the low hang.
We could probably could have done like a 4-hour show today. This is like really, really cool. I want to talk resources for teams, because everyone's building right now, and there's so much tribal knowledge in FRC that it can be hard to catch up. And I think there's a lot of teams out there who have just like Armand, on your team, how many students have been to an FRC event?
Ooh, current students, we have been to half the season FRC events. There's like 4 kids who have been to half the season, they got cut in half. So that's about what we got.
Yeah, so it's important that we talk about the various resources. So some things I want to pump up. Number 1, the Ontario team Slack, which is just a great place to dive in, to ask questions or whatever. Armand, I feel like you're in there constantly. I love it. At some point, do some homework, man.
I know.
See, again, I'm going uncle on you right here. So, but that's a good place to be. We'll get an invite link out there. Didn't put one in the document. The 118 Everybot. Let's talk about this for a second here, because for the last 3 years, folks at 118 have designed a simple robot and they put all the plans there that can be built for less than $1,000 plus your kit of parts. They put all the resources out there for it, CAD, videos, and all that. And we've had Ontario districts not just won by Everybots, but captained by Everybots. And so thanks to William Neal and Swaggy P. Paul Keenan, there's going to be an Everybot build session coming up later this month. It'll be done remotely, but like a webcam to show how this is done. And next week on the show, we got Jenna Kay, Ethan, and Ryan from NASA who are coming on to show off everything about the Everybot. So check that one out. And we're dropping a link in chat right now, 118everybot.org. And Jamie, Dave, thank you for dropping the Slack invite link into chat. Really, really appreciate that. So that's a big one. The Open Alliance. Who here is familiar with the Open Alliance? Show me a thumb if you are familiar with the Open Alliance. Okay, so not everyone is. So this is cool. This is why we want to talk about it. There are a group of FRC teams across the world who are so gracious and kind. They are sharing everything they do as they do it, their entire design process, which I think for our teams right now who aren't able to meet because schools are closed and because of a partial lockdown, you're all like, I can't prototype anything. How do I know what's going to work? But all these teams are doing prototyping right now and they're sharing it all. And we actually have a video from one of the, my favorite Open Alliance, actually, I can't pick a favorite because I love 6328 as well, but 3847 Spectrum has this great blog where they share everything. So let's take a look at one of their intake prototyping videos.
Leave it running. I just want to see what happens. Oh, that was shockingly good. Okay. Yeah. That's not bad. All right.
That was awesome. Wow.
So
That's not bad, they say.
I love Allen. I love Allen. That's
Yeah.
shockingly good. Like,
Yeah.
what is that here? But one thing I really love, I love so many things about what Spectrum does, showing everything, but they also show their failures too. So like so people know what doesn't work and know that this is hard. But blog.spectrum3847.org is the place to go to get access to all this. The link is dropped in chat, but there's so many other teams who are putting stuff out there like this, and we'll be plugging various teams across the way on the show. You got questions that you just need like a specific answer to, where you like don't really feel comfortable asking like everyone? Well, April, does Hall of Fame Team 1114 have a resource that they put together with First Canada for this?
We do. This is a resource that's been around for the last couple of years. It's a little bit new and updated this year, so we're pretty excited about it. It is the online help desk, not the Ontario help desk, as I called it for the first 3 months I was associated with it.
It's because we have too many acronyms. We have too many acronyms.
We abbreviated OHD, and I was like, that has to be Ontario. But yeah, so the online help desk, I'm sure the link will appear in chat. It's great. You'll get answers from people who know what they're talking about in theory, or at least we can connect you to the right people. It's open for FTC and FRC, which is really, really cool. We've got some great help from the Mobile Alumni Council from First Canada, as well as a handful of mentors from 1114, a couple other teams that are giving us a hand this year. Really excited about that. Great virtual platform if you have really specific questions, or if you want to ask about programming or mechanics, or hey, I need a resource for this and I can't find it on Chief Delphi, like, what do you recommend? Definitely reach out and ask us. So
it's very, very cool. I know teams use it extensively in the past, and it gets very individualized. And sometimes I remember there was teams where like there ended up being Skype sessions, and actually a team ended up coming down for stuff. It was really, really cool. Taegan, you've got a pretty cool resource out there.
Indeed, I do. So why wait till week 1 to play Rapid React when you can play it on the XRC simulator? So developed by originally by FTC team 11115. The simulator has a ton of different games, but most importantly for us right now, it has Rapid React. And so there's I think right now there's only one. A robot on it right now that you can play, and you can kind of feel the field. You can kind of see, okay, how big is it compared to my robot, what's hanging, what's all those different things that you got to do. So that's xrcsimulator.org. And then there's also like competitions you can do and get to know other people in the FIRST community. There are teams playing it all over the world. People have even been introduced to FIRST through the simulator, which I think is really cool. But the whole point is you can chat about it, you can play, you can set up a competition within your team, you can get to know other people. Karthik put the link in chat, which is awesome. You could just go to downloads. If you have any problems, join the Discord. If you want to chat with people, join the Discord and we can talk about it. And yeah, right now, as more RI3Ds come out, we'll get more robots that are not just a pyramid. We didn't want to well, by we, I mean like didn't want to leak anything about the game. So it's right now it's an every bot that magically picks up every ball it touches and shoots. And that'll be updated throughout the season as we get to know more about the game physics, more about bouncingness of balls, a bunch of great stuff. Definitely recommend get to hang out and play some matches.
I recommend all teams build an intake that magically picks
That's
up every
true.
ball.
If
That
you
would
can
be
do it.
Touch
Touch it, own it. That's a great saying.
Touch and you own it is the thing for intakes. Hey, we are running out of time, but we do have some questions from chat, so we're gonna go kind of rapid fire to make sure we cover all of them. Ever played bump on the playground? How many balls are gonna get knocked out by other bots shooting?
Many. That's what we've seen in the simulator. There's a ton of it happening. Which is why I recommend it.
Is there a portion of the game where all 6 teams might be shooting at the same time, and like maybe human players too?
The first
Autonomous.
15 seconds?
Autonomous?
Never heard of her.
And this is the first time in FRC we've had 6 robots shoot at the same target.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have never seen this level of interaction of game pieces just colliding with each other.
But not just 6 robots and 2
human players.
Which is why the low goal is so important for consistency. Just saying.
Rishi, I know you said you had a lot of thoughts on this one, but if you can't practice with others, how do you suggest simulating a real match? I feel this game's going to be a lot different on the field versus at home. And if you can be brief, brother.
Yeah, so the things I want to make sure to point out is practice with obstructions. This thing is huge in the middle. You're not going to be able to see a robot all the time. I've had times where I've put tables on top of tables so my drivers can't see anything and they got to look through the camera. That's one main thing. And 2, don't be too systematic on your cycling. The balls are going to be everywhere. If you can make a box and maybe cut out 4 holes and create little ramps, that'd be awesome. That's probably the closest thing you have to randomness, but yeah, don't be too systematic right off the bat, I would say.
An idea that just came to me. Maybe like go to like a playground supply store, and the thing, April, I don't know if you've seen this, but like in pretty much every Ontario playground you have one where you toss you have them
the funnel.
The funnel thing. I don't know, maybe
Oh yeah, probably about the right size.
Yeah. Question. I wonder, and this is probably specifically for April and Taegan because you got cargo in front of you. I wonder how the Velcro temp would change as the balls age. Because April, you said it was super sticky, but that was like a brand new ball. Do you think when it gets fuzzier, it will stick as well?
So I think it'll get stickier, actually. Because this is like, I don't know if you can see it. It's very low pile. I would call this extremely low pile carpet. Like less fuzz than a tennis ball has. And so I think there will be like a sweet spot where they get to a nice level of fuzzy, where Velcro gets really sticky, and then the fuzzes are going to start to fall off and it's going to get less sticky and less sticky. So I don't know if I would recommend Velcro as like your be all end all mechanism, but if you're like,
especially because you have to get rid of it, right? Like it has to then detach from the Velcro somehow.
But if you want a touch it and you own it intake, couple strips of hook tape on the front of your robot, and
this is where prototyping matters, and this is where like pay attention to what other folks are prototyping from the Open Alliance, from the robot in 3 days, see how it's worked for them. Couple fun questions here. April, that is ARM that you have there. Is that someone wants to know, is that from the IRI auction, or was that the practice bot?
It's not. That was off of the actual robot.
Okay, there you
when
go.
They were taking down the field in 2013. Someone that I know happened to be there, and he took it home. And yeah, so I think it speaks to the amount of effort that went into that mechanism, in the fact that it's still around 9 years later.
There was a lot of effort. Let's just say say that. Rishi, are you having a big wedding? It's a question in chat.
TBD.
TBD. Okay.
Yeah,
because
I have a lot of family and she has a lot of family, so it might be big just because of that, I'd say.
The question was actually at Lisa Ramraj. They added her in chat, but it came into the document. So it's your decision now. If a swinging robot can hit the wall, does that mean jump kicks are allowed? I think yes.
You might be right. Might be a little biased.
I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Let me control F driver station in the rules and see what they have to say about it.
But I want to, because now not only can I kick, but I can catch the bar and then use it for leverage. Yeah.
There is no hanging of humans from the hangar assembly.
I would love to see a Karthik monkey bar across from the low rung all the way to the traversal rung and then just kick the glass.
Oh man, you play the Spider-Man theme, I will go right there.
Yes.
You know, wait.
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil anything.
No
but, like,
spoilers, yeah. no
okay,
spoilers.
okay. I won't say anything.
We're gonna take this opportunity to remind students that there is in fact Velcro on every single driver station on a first field. So you might want to put some of that Velcro on the bottom of your
And
driver station so it doesn't go flying.
Ontario teams have learned to clamp their driver stations for finals match number 1 over the years. Hey, everyone, this was a lot of fun. I think the audience enjoyed it, but I know I had fun. So thank you for coming on, and maybe we'll bring some of you back for more discussions. Because like we didn't even get to talk about autonomous. Sorry, Parth. Sorry, Armand. I know that's a fun topic there, but I think we covered a lot of good stuff, and this is going to be a great game. Anyone final thoughts on Rapid React presented by the Boeing Company? Anything you want to add that hasn't been said yet? A strategic nugget, Jewel? Now's the chance.
I'm just so dang excited. It feels so good to have an FRC game, even though like we're still virtual, like we're meeting remotely, we're doing Google Hangouts to do design, and like it's not what we wanted, but like it feels really good to have a new game and to like be back to having these kinds of conversations. And it's been a real mood lifter for me lately.
My best friend is gonna have a high hang. I think that's kind of what I'll sum it up. My strategic nugget.
Your best friend?
As in like any robot that has a high hang is gonna be my best friend.
Okay, I was like, wait, who's your best
So that's
friend?
how they get invited to the wedding, right?
Every high hang, every team that high hangs, the entire
Ontario team with a
is
high
invited
hang. If you
to
get
Rishi
10
and Lisa's
points,
wedding.
you're invited to the wedding.
And you know there'll be samosas at that wedding.
And Lisa did say that the wedding tables are by team numbers. So there you go. You can represent the team while you're at it.
There you go. It's gonna
I
be
would
Oh yeah, have fun tonight, Rishi. This will be a good one.
Yeah. Rishi doesn't want to leave.
Yeah,
If I turn my headphone off, I could probably hear.
Hey everyone, thank you for being on the show. To everyone out there who's watching, hey, you know what? The season is going to be different. It's going to be challenging. Some of the teams that you're used to seeing may not be there, but let's make the best of it and do what we can. But let's also remember to stay safe and do our best to it's not just about protecting ourselves, but it's about protecting our communities, the underserved, the marginalized, the folks with it who are immunocompromised. If you have not gotten vaccinated yet, please take this opportunity to get your booster shot or whatever shot you're allowed to get. And also, if you have, spread the word to folks who may not be aware so we can do this all. Armand, any thoughts, co-host?
Again, just re-announcing the sentiments of excitement. I'm just so ready to go back to school, start prototyping with hands-on type of stuff, and just really excited for it.
It's going to be great. Next week, we got FTC recaps of all the qualifier events. That's going to be cool. I know, Armand, you're going to be tuning into that.
Yeah.
FTC Superstar and 118 Everybot. So we're going to be hyping that up, seeing all that good stuff. Stay safe, folks, and check out the resources we have. And we will see you next week, not 2 weeks, next week. Bye, everyone.